Hey, you're listening to Cracking the Code, the podcast for leaders building and growing service-based businesses. If you are in legal or medical or financial services, if you have letters behind your name that qualify you to do what you do for a living, you are in the right place. I am your host, Rob Riggs, here to bring you intel and access that are designed to decode how technology can be and should be impacting your growth. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back to Cracking the Code. I'm Rob Riggs, and today we're talking about something that every professional service firm struggles with. It's turning leads into clients before your competitors do. So my guest is Ben Wright from Stronger Sales Teams. And Ben, thanks so much for being here. And why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself?
Of course, thanks, Rob, for having me. And the first thing I have to do is apologise for my deep, heavy Australian accent. I get told regularly, particularly with my North American customers, to slow down because this accent can be a little bit hard to follow. So I'll do my best to do that. And listeners might have to put me down to point 0.8 speed or something like that as we go through the day. But I get excited very easily, and then it can be harder. But look, for me, Rob, yeah, thank you again for having me. But my background's quite varied. I'm 43 now. I had a split career. I had 10 years in corporate. It was enjoyable. I learnt a lot, but by my late 20s, I decided that entrepreneurial businesses were the way for me. And since that time, in a nutshell, we're into the seventh business now. We're just building a fantastic, a big content studio here in the northern part of Australia, which is going to be amazing. It'll be one of the biggest in the country. But across those businesses, had a really big focus in renewables, in construction, in service businesses. It was quite varied, but a couple of those businesses were really successful. One of them in particular, we sold out to a really large multi-billion-dollar asset-backed Australian company, or they're a Hong Kong-based company. We've also had some smaller businesses. We've had big sales teams, big full-time equivalent teams. We had 280 people and staff and subbies in our largest business. So I've had this really varied career. But one thing that's been quite constant for me is the importance of building great relationships with customers, which lead to you being able to grow that business and all the fantastic benefits that come from it. So that's in a nutshell. These days, I spend most of my time around sales strategy, anything from small, well-funded, fast growth businesses through to my largest customer at the moment, turning over just over $5 billion per annum in revenue. So there's a real big stretchy part there in terms of revenue. But there you go. That's me in a nutshell.
Nice. Okay. What what are you generally doing for a client? Let's say that's the $5 million mark and then the $5 billion mark. What remains the same and what's different?
It's a really interesting question. I have now been in sales strategy for the better part of a decade, but really focused heavily on it for 5 years now. And what I thought was important from a consulting point of view 5 years ago has actually changed significantly now. Yes, the majority of what you do as a salesperson or a business leader, because if you're a business leader, it doesn't matter whether you're a service business or a products business, you are always representing the company. You are always selling. You are always building relationships. The best leaders recognize that and they do it well. But yes, there's absolutely pieces of most businesses that are the same. And then there's absolutely pieces that are unique across every business. The last 5 to 10% of businesses are unique, but the rest generally follow similar processes. But the piece that I've learned is the importance of simplicity. For sales teams, for sales leaders, both have very equal approaches in terms of the requirements for simplicity because they're both very busy roles. And so for me, the big focus with the teams that we work with these days is actually around getting the basics right, that 1% better every day type of approach, the atomic habits theme. And James made that, I think he made that famous, if you like. Progress over perfection, but really making sure that we're doing the basic things and having small incremental changes happen again and again and again. And I think the difference that, to answer your question, smaller businesses, when you get that right, can move the dial a lot quicker than bigger businesses because they come across cultural barriers a lot more readily than your smaller and mid cap businesses. So anything up to $50 million I think the messaging is that they're the ones that can really move the dial quickly by
Mhm.
changing some of those really nice basic elements of their sales process.
Right. And I love the 1% better every day, right? Because when you look at that compounded, it's that difference is huge. The end of the
Yeah.
month, the end of the year, et cetera. Yeah, that's great. Well, so you've built sales teams, you've built sales strategies, and what is something that is consistent that is going to work regardless of company size, regardless of industry, whether you're selling, product or services. What do you see that consistency being?
Look, it's a really good question because you could answer this with a number of different frameworks or methodologies or like the 1% better theme, things to build a team around. But for me,
Mhm.
what makes the biggest difference is a sales process. Now that's where you often roll the eye roll and the cringe that says, oh, a sales script. And it's where I stop most teams and say, no, a sales process is not a script. I am
Yeah.
huge on salespeople and business leaders having their own personality and their own way of engaging with customers. But
Okay.
but really successful teams, businesses, leaders know how to do the majority of the things, the majority of the same way, the majority of the time. Right? And often what I find is that the more experienced a leader or a salesperson is, the more they rely on that experience and the less they rely on a process. So with
Mm.
every team that we work with, and I say every team, I have never walked into a business that has a process, a sales process that is robust and doesn't have significant areas for improvement. So that for me is always the place to start. But there's ways to go around building engagement, getting your team involved, or even if it's just you on your own out the front leading your business, there's ways to go about building that process that allow it to be simple enough that it can be followed day in, day out, again and again and again, but at the same time, engaging enough for the customer that you can create those points of difference, create value, build relationships, and move to that paradigm of being known, liked, or trusted, right? Which is
Yeah.
it's a very common mentality around why people buy from you. So that for me is the most common element is you've got to get your sales process right, but the simpler you make it, the better.
For sure. So you brought up an interesting point, like the more experienced the salesperson is, like oftentimes the less they want to follow a process, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm an avid reader or at least a listener to audiobooks, and one of my favorite authors is Alex Ramosi because I love the way he approaches sales. And he's got a massive sales team, but he doesn't care how good the salesperson is. As long as they follow the script, they're going to be successful, right? What's the difference that you've seen in somebody that is experienced and will roll with the punches and throw the script away, or somebody that will follow the process regardless of how new they are to the sales industry?
Yeah, I might answer that one actually with an
Okay.
example. I've been working with they're a service-based business. We've been working together for almost 18 months now. And when we started, this leader, so the leader's carrying the bag here, the leader's doing most of the sales work, uh, was very inexperienced. And his words to me were, Ben, I don't know what I don't know. And I said, fantastic. Here's the process. And I actually built it for him in this instance.
Okay.
We built it together, but he very much followed my lead. Now he was closing at about 20% was his close
Mhm.
rates, which is okay, right? You can build a
Yeah.
business on 20%. It's not amazing, but you're not going to lose your shirt. So
Mhm.
6 weeks later, he had doubled his business and his close rate had grown to 40%. Now you can run the numbers
Nice.
there. He hadn't gone and generated more leads. He'd simply closed more deals that he was quoting. He
Mhm.
had followed exactly the process that we built together.
Nice.
Inexperienced, but he said, great, I'm going to follow it. Now, we didn't do scripts. Okay, I gave him some general ways to say things, but he followed that process. Now, we met earlier this week and we pulled up his last 2 months of quoting, and his close rate had dropped back under 15%, like
Wow.
that. So from 40 back to 15 in a couple of months period.
Yeah.
And I said to him, what's going on? I'm busy. I've got too much on. I've got too many quotes to do. And the question I asked him was, are you following that process? Oh, no, 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 I've got it. Everything's fine now, right? Now we're moving from beginner salesperson. I wouldn't say you're at the top end of experience after 18 months, but we'd worked really intently together. He'd taken 5 years of selling in 18 months. So he had some experience behind him. And he'd moved away from that process and said, yeah, I got it. And don't worry about it. Right, I'm in front of customers. I know what to do. Now his close rate had dropped by two-thirds over that period of time.
Yeah.
And we went through if he was following the process, and the majority of it, and I mean 60 to 70% of it, he'd stopped doing.
Wow.
And he looked at me and he went, wow, nothing else had changed. So he's now back on that process. By the time we go live, we'll be a couple of weeks maybe down the track, and
Yeah.
I'll fill you in on the process as to how he's going. But I think that really sums up the difference between experience and inexperience. Is when you're inexperienced, you're hungry to learn, and if you can follow a process, you can really get some quick gains. The experienced salespeople tend to get to the point where they say, "I know what I'm doing here. Let's just get in and wing it. My experience will get me through."
Right.
But like anyone with experience, you have such a huge amount of knowledge that you tend to leave behind some of the critical things that you've learned along the journey. It's not laziness, but it's a sense of slight overconfidence. So the best experienced salespeople still recognize that they need to follow the process, but they
Hmm.
take it to a whole nother level versus the inexperienced teams. And that goes for leaders as well as businesses. The best leaders they know their craft. They are fantastic in their subject knowledge, but they just give themselves a bit of structure to make that happen.
Yeah. So it's not a matter of having somebody that knows kind of how to sell, what they're doing. If you have somebody that can follow a process, follow a script, whatever the case may be, you're going to have better success, right? Um, and
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
a sales manager is looking for success, as well. I hear complaints all the time that I need better people, right? But what they need is better process, or they need people who to follow that process. You have, I imagine, you have ways that you kind of set things up to help somebody follow that process and be successful.
Look, absolutely. And I also hear really commonly that I need better leads. Life,
Mm.
death,
Hmm.
taxes, a salesperson, a business leader wants better leads.
Yeah.
And look, my take on that is we actually need to be better at qualifying the leads we've got. So we go really hard for the ones that are most likely to close. And it doesn't matter our business, we know those types of customers. And then those that don't, right, we make sure that we handle them as we need to because we might have missed something, but we certainly don't go as hard onto those. So I think if we talk about how do we get that sales process built in, it's about having just a very basic formula that you can follow to bring your sales process together. Identify where those gaps are. I'm probably straying a little bit from your question, so you can
No,
put
you're
me
good.
across the years and bring me back in line if you want to. But I'm trying to follow the same intended meaning here. But it's about building that process, working out where your gaps are, because when you find those gaps, you see where you need to improve, right? And most of the time, it's very simple. How you greet a customer, how you leave a customer, huge impact on close rates. Those first 30 seconds, have you put a clean shirt on? Have you looked someone in the eye? Have you told them thank you for their time? Have you spent a couple of minutes before that meeting clearing your head so that you're focused on what you're about to go through and not dragging whatever was happening beforehand, right? Particularly in when you're a leader and carrying the bag, right? You've got so much going on in your head, you're switching constantly. Right.
Yeah.
So it's getting those type of things right and working out where you need to improve. These type of approaches, they make such significant difference to businesses that are small cap, particularly $0 to $10 million businesses. I'm talking about these businesses are able to grow by 50%, 100% in really short periods of time just by getting a few things right.
Mm. That's huge. Um, where so much of what generally yeah, people think sales is the slimy, like convincing somebody that I have what you need, and it's just kind of getting cash from somebody, right? Um, is there a better perspective that somebody should have when they're thinking about their sales in their organization?
I think so, Rob. I think that this started pre-COVID. It sped up during COVID. and it's really accelerated post-COVID. And the bit that's changed here is that buyers, people, are much more educated than they were previously, or if
Yeah.
they're not, have the ability to tap into a huge amount of resources, right?
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter what you're buying, you're able to increase your knowledge from very little to a moderate amount very quickly in the current
Yeah.
environment. And with AI and singularity now becoming really evident, you're actually able to go and get someone to do that research for you and just give you the top line pieces there. So, the reason that I want to say that before I answer the question is that yes, in the past, sales has been about create the need, get their attention, create some urgency and get the deal done. No doubt about it. In the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, right, that there was a lot of selling prevalent around that. But now, and for me, I'm a huge advocate around this. It's actually about who can create the most value the fastest are going to be the ones that get the deal, right? Because if you
Hmm.
can create that value, i.e., do something for a customer that they either can't do or don't want to do for themselves, they're the types of people that are winning. And then from there, that's when you're moving into, okay, here's what we do, here's what we offer. Sure, here you can create some senses of urgency, give people some offers to get deals done. That all still exists, right? And to be fair, when you're creating a deal for a customer to get them to make a decision, both parties are winning
Yeah.
because they're
Right.
saving some money or they're getting some extra benefits. You're getting the deal done. I don't see that as sleazy. But what I
Yeah.
do think is most important is that before you worry about the type of industry you're in or if sales are sleazy, is that you actually focus on how do I create the most value as quickly as I can for my customer? Because once
Hmm.
you do that, the customer's in essence chosen you outside of price abnormalities. They've chosen you to work with, and it's a tick box event from there, rather than a comparison of three quotes or three lawyers or three doctors or three home tradespeople. Right? They've picked you because they've built that relationship with you because you've created value for them. So that for me is what I think is the epitome of selling now. Get the value done, but get it done quickly, really quickly.
Yeah. Hey, this is Rob Riggs, and I wanted to take just a second to tell you about Code Conspirators, our sponsor here. And we are a technology-focused performance marketing agency serving professional service firms. So that's legal, medical, financial, engineering. If you have to take a test to do what you do for a living, we help you grow your practice with websites and apps and software and performance marketing. That's organic, paid ads, retargeting, conversion optimization. And we're also doing a whole host of things with CRM, AI, and automation that's been bringing our clients tremendous value. If you're curious at all, go to codeconspirators.com to learn more. Now back to the show. What are some of the ways, so you brought up AI. What are some of the ways that you've seen technology empower sales teams that didn't happen before, like 2022? Um, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I'm going to exclude phone-based sales teams from this answer because phone-based
Okay.
sales teams, it's not going to be long before they move into AI agents. And in fact, we're seeing a lot of businesses do that already. I'm going to focus on
Hmm.
the face-to-face type of selling or the video call or the phone-based selling, right? With the interpersonal selling. I think a couple of things have happened here. Number one is people are able to be better prepared about who they're seeing. So if you're in the B2B space, you're able to research businesses and get personas on the people that you're talking to in far more detail than you have previously, which means you can align your pitch a lot quicker, right? So you can create value a lot quicker. In the home space, right, you're able to, again, to do a lot more research on what your competitors are doing, on what's in the market and what some common problems are, right? On if you're going to homes, you can get full layouts of those homes before you go in, right? If you're in healthcare professions, you're able to get access to medical history, which you've always been able to get access to, but it's a lot more seamless now than it was. So the access to information is number one. But number two is you're able to get coaching back and forward a lot quicker. You can test pitches, you can have a concept, you can throw it into your model, into Claude, into Claw, whatever you're looking at now, right? Where you can actually then test, iterate, refine a lot better. For me, I don't think AI has penetrated relationship selling as much as it has other areas as yet because it is still about building relationships. other than to better prepare you and also to allow you to hone your craft a little bit better. So, but both of those are quite significant, particularly when you take the value lens as your prime driver.
Sure, sure. How long do you think it's going to be before people are accepting of repless sales? So they just want to get things done without talking to a human?
I think personally for phone-based selling, we're probably almost there.
Yeah, yeah,
I think we'll see. I think we'll see this year the shift will happen. I would hate to be a salesperson selling a commodity on the phone now, right? I think that's going to be a really difficult role to justify moving forward. Face to face selling, relationship based selling. For me, we're a considerable amount of time away from that. I think AI will play really heavily around the edges, right, in
yeah,
helping you prepare, like we said, in once someone comes to you in your offices or you go to them at their premises, I think AI will be able to help you get the information you need more quickly, consolidate it more quickly, create your proposals more quickly, engage with your customer more quickly, right? Have pieces in your ear that coaches you on the go, that tells you what you're missing, right? I think there'll be
hmm,
huge amounts of support really quickly there. But from a face-to-face point of view, those types of projects that we're relying on that, I think the best salespeople have still got a really good career ahead of them, right? That's that creator mode versus the consumer mode because they're able to
yeah,
create those relationships. So, yeah, but I mean, those salespeople that are lazy, those salespeople that don't spend time in building relationships and leaders that don't spend time in creating value, I think you're going to be in trouble because everyone else who isn't an expert or who isn't as good as you technically is going to catch you really quickly because of the
yeah,
access to information, right? And then interpersonal skills, they're going to go past you.
right, for sure. So you've worked with a lot of salespeople, a lot of sales teams. Is there a particular tech stack that you see kind of working the best for the widest array of people?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I don't think I've asked that in my years in selling, but it's one where an obvious answer comes for me. And that's, look, absolutely trying to use a tech stack that has everything in one. Salespeople and business leaders, and I classify them quite similarly in some respects, they're busy. Sales leaders, sales leaders love simplicity. Right, as a sales team, your job is to get out there and see customers, and you don't want to be weighed down by admin in the background, right? And leaders, right, the driver's probably more that they just have so much on, so many balls in the air, they don't want to be bogged down. So, for me, I would be prioritizing systems that give you everything in one.
Yeah,
I know that there are systems out there where you can bolt them all together and you can use a Zapier or something like that to integrate. But look, I'm a heavy believer of use something that can give you all in one. The best experiences I've seen most commonly across all of my teams is using HubSpot.
yeah,
Uh, and I've used it for a long time myself. I very rarely see a team be let down by HubSpot, whereas
yeah.
most other systems, I've either seen them let teams down, excuse me, or I've seen the cost outweigh the returns. Whereas I think
Hmm.
HubSpot's got a nice balance for that. From a platform point of view, look, I've seen teams use a lot of those platforms. In the end of the day, Go High Level seems to be one that a lot of teams are going towards to create their platforms. Like Kajabi was the one that was driving a lot of interest, but cost again starting to outweigh the benefits. So they'd be two that stick out for me.
Yeah, with you, we use HubSpot. We were HubSpot partners for a long time, and but high level is just so much a better value for our clients, at least.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. But yeah, interesting. Um, so I know, so we're yeah coming up on our time, but I'd love to kind of just open the floor to, is there something that we haven't talked about that you think our users would benefit or our listeners would benefit from hearing that I just maybe haven't asked?
Well, I think the area we haven't touched on a lot is the importance of speed. I'm seeing across most of my customers now. Now, how many customers have I worked with? I've had hundreds and hundreds of salespeople go through my programs over the last couple of years. So I've got a lot of
Okay.
data points here. What I'm seeing is inertia, so doing nothing, is starting to rise to the top again around engagements. I think during COVID and post-COVID, it was a yes or a no. Deals were happening or they were going to a competitor. Now I'm seeing
Hmm.
time start to get in the way. People are really busy. I'm seeing a lot of overwhelm around people being bombarded now by different providers and, what type of tech do we roll out? So for me, what's happening then is that for every 10 projects or deals or customer engagements that we had where we were previously winning three or four and losing six or seven to competitors, we're now winning, two or three. We're losing a few to competitors and we're losing four or five to inertia. And how I'm working with teams and the best teams I'm working with now are recognizing the importance of speed. So when you have that first engagement from a customer, whether they're coming to you or you're going to them, right, it's making sure that you are trying to get in flow with them and running at the same speed. So contacting them really quickly when they've got that energy and they're excited. Because the longer that you take, this customer starts to slow down and you're still trying to run, right? I can't even do it. I can't even get my hands to run at different speeds. It's hard to even conceptually show.
Right.
But the message I think here is that if you're going to engage with a customer, do it quickly, create value quickly, and get in line with the excitement or the interest or the curiosity that they have when they're wanting to talk to you, rather than wait to do it in your own time. They're
Hmm.
the businesses that are running really high close rates because they're able to go along the journey with their customer. They're able to create excitement with their customer, and they're the ones that are being seen as with them hand in hand, right? That partnership approach
Yeah.
through their journey. So, uh, anyone that's listening, I don't care what business you're in, if you were going to go and look at one thing coming out of this, it would be the speed of how you're engaging with customers from lead to first meeting to quote to close to post sale follow up to referrals to repeat business. That's where I'd be going really hard on, and then pairing it obviously with a good sales process.
Yeah. Is nobody is just looking to spend money, right? They've got a problem they're looking to solve. And the biggest the easiest example to talk about is like a plumber, right? We're not going down a list and thinking through. I'd like to have my toilet fixed in September. 6 months from now. You got a water problem you need to fix now. In same way with somebody who's in a car wreck, they need their personal injury attorney on it. And the what we see is that the person that answers the most quickly is getting the lead time and time again.
Yeah.
It's the speed to lead, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
We had a pipe go last night. It was outside. It was significant. I rang my plumber. I said, "Hey, I'm worried this is going to really go." He said, "I'll see you in 20 minutes." Right
yeah.
now, we have a major commercial build about to go underway with our content and podcast studio. Who do you think's first one off the rank when we go and get, when we go and get the $20,000 worth of plumbing work done? Right, it's
Right.
them. And all he had to do was it was a $200 problem to come and fix something over here at my house, right?
Yep.
But he knows that, and he reacted accordingly. And the likelihood is he'll get the business for the commercial work, right? Because he
Right.
was he was fast and he was listening and he was in tune.
Yeah, fantastic. So a lot of our listeners are professional service. They sell their knowledge for a living. They're doctors or lawyers. They're financial advisors. They're engineers, etc. And they often don't see themselves as salespeople. But where would their business be without somebody, bringing new business into the organization? You have any thoughts around how? They should be seeing themselves, how they should improve their sales process when they don't see themselves as a
Yeah,
salesperson.
yeah. Look, frankly, it doesn't fuss me whether they label themselves as a salesperson or not. That's irrelevant to me.
Mhm.
The bit that is relevant is how they see themselves to their customer. So I would encourage anyone listening, and I've heard this a lot, a lot, right? For me, it's focus on what you want to do for your customer and focus on creating value. Because if whenever you engage with a customer, you worry about how can you create value for them? How can you solve their problem? How can you help them capitalize on an opportunity? How can you do something for them that they don't want to do or can't do? If you focus on that, then label yourself whatever you want because that's going to
Yeah.
build you a successful business. Label yourself, customer service. Label yourself sales. Label yourself chief happiness officer. I don't mind, as long
Yeah.
as you are focusing on creating value for that customer. You are miles ahead because, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, it actually doesn't take a lot to stand out in the sales landscape. Right,
Hmm.
there's only three or four things you need to do, and I teach that in the first week of my program, and which is why so quickly I see people double their business because there's not a hell of a lot they've got to get right to make a difference. But go with that, run with the value lens, right, and call
Yeah.
yourself whatever you want, and I'm happy.
Love it. Ben, this has been incredibly valuable and I think helpful. I think every professional service firm listening just got a roadmap for fixing their sales process, and it starts with speed, it starts with systems, and not experience and heroics. But if somebody is listening and they want to reach out, they want to find out more about what you could do with them to help, like where can they reach out?
Well, the easiest way, I think you're going to drop a link into your show notes that they can
Sure.
click on. And it is, we talk about simplicity. It's the most simple of links you can ever follow. You click in, you put in a couple of details, and we'll get in touch around helping you fix your quoting process. Because
Yeah.
that is whether you call it pricing, call it quoting, call it a professional service scope of works. Again, I don't mind, but it's the process of communicating with the customer how you're going to create value for them. We take a look at that for anyone that's within the markets that we service, and give them a few pointers to help them increase their sales. And I mean, we get some businesses who leave that and they grow their businesses by 20% from having 20 minutes with me, right? And in the end, they often come back and work with us because they're like, wow, well, we've grown that, but now we need to hold it and do everything else that goes around it. But the link in your notes would be the best way, or if you want to go directly, go to strongersalesteams.com. You'll see my face planted on there. You can't miss it. And you can get in touch that way. But I'd recommend click on that link and book in a quote order. I mean, it's 20 minutes. Bring in your quote template or your professional services template. We'll have a look at it and make some changes for you.
Excellent, man. Yeah, appreciate it again. Thanks for being on. Okay, great conversation, right? But don't let the episode end here. We have packed the show notes with everything you need to take action. Key takeaways are down there, as well as links to the resources we mentioned in the show. And also grab our assessments. They're the same deep dive analyses that we use with our high performing clients on a regular basis. And we typically uncover $1 million opportunities that many firms and practices completely miss on their own. And also remember, every successful firm has started with someone, one person who decided to stop accepting good enough and start demanding exceptional. You can make that decision today. Until next time, we will keep conspiring for your success.